Hi there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to finish up our get of our address labels, and we're going to start by going ahead and implementing what we need to do here for the ID. So we're going to pass in a long, and when it sees a number on here, it's going to route to this particular get. So you can see the example here that was generated for us. And then what we're going to do is pretty simple. We already wrote all the code in our data layer, so all we're going to do is just pass in right here the ID that we get. Okay. And so if we go over here and look at our data layer, so what happens when an ID long is passed in is it's going to do this where filter here. So it'll filter out the records based on that. Now, so one problem we've got is that this is going to return an array, and when we're passing in by ID, we expect to only get one thing back. So the way we can deal with that is by simply just returning one item. So the enumerable has element at method, and so in this case we're just going to say just return the first thing that you get back. Now IDs are unique, so that should always give us back only one result. So you'll notice up here we're returning back an IEnumerable, but here we're returning back a specific address label. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that. And we will use Postman here, as we've been doing. So it'll take it a moment to get started. Okay, so our server's coming up. Says our application starting. And as soon as we see the values endpoint triggered here, we'll be able to go over to Postman and try this out. As you know, when you compile these the first time, there's a fair amount of building and compiling that has to go on. Okay, so our server's up, so let's go make our call over here. Let's just check real quick and make sure that we have the same. So you'll notice that the port numbers change, 3211. And so, well, it actually hasn't changed, it's the same, but you didn't want to check that all the time. So remember, in this case, we're going out to the Azure database, the MySQL database, and there we go. So we're getting back all of our data. So now let's try it by ID. So I'm going to take one of these and copy it. And we're going to use the pattern that was code generated for us. And we should just get back that one record. And that's all we get. So that part worked great. Okay, so now what happens if we want to actually have different types of parameters? For example, there's probably situations where you want to get the address labels by state or by zip code. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this a little bit, or actually add to it. And we are going to add by postal code. Remember, these names we needed to have unique. So this is how things are differentiated in Web API. So you'll need to make sure that's different, and then name the parameter here. And then the other thing we have to do is we have to specify a route. So I'm going to put a route on here, and you'll see how this works in just a minute. And you can name this whatever you'd like. It needs to be unique. I'm going to say by postal code. Okay. And then it's going to expect something that looks similar to this. It's going to want it to say address labels / by postal code. That's the route part we just added in. So what you put here is going to be here. So that's how we're going to differentiate this from the other endpoint calls on a get. So by postal code, and then you'll put the parameter postal code equals whatever the postal code is. Okay. So this is what the URL will need to look like now. Now to do this, we're going to have to create some different code. So I'm going to do that real quick. So in this case, it's going to be passing in a postal code. And we can't use this get address label the way it's set up right now. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new method. We could do some things with reuse here to make this so that it would all go through one thing. You could even set up in your get, you could even set up some more extensive parameters to do multiple types of queries on. But I'm just going to show you how the routing and the extra parameter works real quick. So we could have multiples returned. So we still want it to be IEnumerable. And get address label, and we're just going to say by postal code in our data layer. And then we'll have the parameter be a string postal code. And then we won't be dealing with the ID anymore, so we can delete all of that. It's always going to be this command right here, so I'll just remove that code. And then our query is not going to be by customer ID anymore. It's going to be postal code, and that's the field from the database. And because it's a string, we need to enclose it in quotes. So we'll append the thing that was passed into us and then finish it off with a single quote to make sure we have correct SQL syntax. And that's all we really have to do. Okay, so over here in the controller, we'll get address label by postal code. We'll pass in the postal code that comes off the request, and we won't need to go to a specific element because this could return multiples, so we want it to come back. We want it to come back with all of the values there. So let's see if that works. Oh, it needs to be an IEnumerable type, so because we can return multiples. And so we will just change that real quick. And then we'll run this and see what we get. Remember, this is what the form of the URL now is going to have to be. It'll need to look like this. So as soon as this starts up, we'll try it out. And we'll start by returning all the data. Okay, so let's try it with all the data first. Make sure that's still working. And then if we put in an ID, that works. And remember that this could be done a different way. We could also say use a parameter like this. That will do the same thing. Actually, it didn't do the same thing, so we'll have to go fix that. All right, so let's go ahead with our postal code. So our route was by postal code. And then we needed the parameter postal code equals, and then you just pick whichever postal code you want. I'll pick, we'll do this Canadian one right here. Well, actually, let's come down here. Grab this one. If it has spaces in it, it'll have to be escaped, or you'll have to have a %20 in there. And we didn't do anything to try to do that. So there you go. By postal code, that works great. So there's how you can do routing with parameters, and hopefully that helps you further build out your capabilities here. There is a concern that we've got with SQL injection. We'll talk about that in a subsequent video for security purposes. Getting by ID is not a problem, but when you start allowing strings here, then they could put additional SQL commands on here that you got to watch out for. So in any case, hopefully this has been useful for you, and I look forward to any questions that you have. Please make sure that you subscribe to the channel. There's several videos out there on REST programming. We're focusing on the ASP.NET Core 2.0 for now, but we have a whole series out there on just regular Web API 2. And so please like the videos if you like them, and subscribe. That helps support what we're doing. And make sure you're watching the different videos that are there. There's a series, and this is the 4th in our series of Core that we're looking at, and we'll continue to do a few more videos in the Core area. Specifically, we'll be looking at using a stored proc to add data and update data in the database. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.